So as part of this demo, we will see several aspects of day-to-day operations of Hadoop cluster using Cloudera Manager and Cloudera distribution of Hadoop. One of them is adding or deleting user spaces, and it is pretty straightforward. I have shown you when I have the Hadoop demo initially. I will do it again. So once you log into the Hadoop cluster onto the gateway node, you can, so for example, I want to create a user called Raju, and or big data mentor, and I want to create a user space for him. So first you have to create a OS user with the name big data mentor. Just say big data, and group is Hadoop. Okay, sudo user add manager big data. Big data and group add, I think, yeah. So group. Yeah. So now if I see big data, no, I think sudo user add big data manager Hadoop. Sudo user del big data. Okay. These are Linux command. Okay. Sudo I made a mistake. That is, let me try another one. Sudo user add bd mentor, okay, -g Hadoop. Yeah, now id bd mentor. We have created the user and the group in Hadoop. Okay, so we have the user bd mentor. And let us change the password of bd mentor. Sudo password of bd mentor and Hadoop is the password. Okay. Now I have to create a user space for him, and this will be one of the day-to-day activities for the admins. Whenever there is an application development team or testing team want a functional user or individual users for their team, they have to set up the user spaces. You will not be running these commands to add the users and all. That will be taken care by SAS depending upon the policies, either by using Active Directory or LDAP basic tools to get the access for the individual users. Once the user is created, now the Hadoop admin role will come into picture where he has to create a user space for that user like BD mentor in HDFS. So when such request comes, what the administrator has to do is he has to sudo to HDFS because he is the owner of the here HDFS is a user, and he is the owner of the HDFS which is distributed across many nodes in the cluster. Okay. Now what this guy after sudoing to HDFS, what he has to do is he has to run Hadoop SS command, and he has to make a directory for the OS user for which you want to create the user space. In this case, OS user is BD mentor. So you have to create a directory with that name. Okay. And then if you do Hadoop SS -ls, and if you run if you run the command on user for BD mental, the user is still HDFS. So even though we have created the directory, that does not mean that we have created user space yet. To make it final, what we have to do is we have to change the owner of the directory in HDFS to BD mental. For that, we have to run a command called Hadoop fs minus ch1, and the BD mentor is the owner name, and supergroup is the or Hadoop is the group name, and then you can do it. You can run this command. Okay. Now we have the now if you run the fsls command, you can clearly see that the owner in HDFS is changed to BD mentor. But there is no user called BD mentor in HDFS, so it is a little bit tricky. It's that's why it is named as user spaces. And the only way is by running the ch1 command and by creating the user and then changing the owner to BD mentor by running the ch1 command. To validate it, even though it is confusing, as long as the output look like this. You have a directory with the OS user name, and the owner of that file is BD mentor, and he has the RWX permissions, read, write, and execute permission. The BD mentor should be able to deal with the HDFS. And the way you should validate is by by logging in as BD mentor. Okay, now the OS user is BD mentor, and let's create a file, vi test.txt, hello world, and exit. And now if you do a Hadoop fs minus ls test.txt and user BD mentor, not ls, I have to do cat. Sorry for that. Again, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. It is put. Okay, now the file is copied. Now you can run Hadoop fs minus ls user BD mentor, and you should see this test.txt in this location. Okay, so now and the one is BD mentor and the directory is Hadoop. Sorry, supergroup group is Hadoop. So this is how you have to add the functional users. Typically, you should create a shell script which can be run as HDFS to create the user and change the permission, and then you can turn around to the developers. But if there is no shell script like that, then you have to run. It's a two-step process. First, you have to create the directory like this, and then first you have to make sure that there is a OS user called BD mentor. Then you have to create the directory, and then you have to change the owner. So these two are the most important steps. And the next one is migration of data from one Hadoop cluster to another Hadoop cluster. So to migrate the data, you have to use a tool called distcp, distributed copy. So the requirement is to copy data from one Hadoop cluster to another Hadoop cluster. So the requirement will come up whenever you are doing a major upgrade. So whenever you are doing a major upgrade, you have to have a copy of your HDFS data, and you should be able to copy as fast as possible. For that, you can use the distcp command and copy all the data to a different cluster, and then upgrade this cluster, and then copy. It's just a copy. So first you made the copy of the data, then you upgrade it, and if you run into any major issues, and then you can redirect your traffic, application traffic to the different cluster. If there are no major issues in the upgrades, then you can use your existing cluster. So what I'm trying to say is, let's say you have Hadoop cluster A, okay, and you want to upgrade it. It's a major upgrade. And if there is something, if something goes wrong in that, there is a probability that everything will be lost. So to avoid that, you need to take the backup. Typically in Hadoop, you will not do the backups every day on daily basis, unlike the traditional RDBMSs. Because in traditional RDBMS, your database might be few terabytes at max, and also there is something called redo logs or commit logs, which can be applied if something goes wrong. So for that, you take full backups once in fortnight, and then every day you will take incremental backups when it comes to traditional databases. Whereas in Hadoop, we are talking about petabytes of data in many of the enterprises, and backing up the petabytes of data is not practical. And also, there is no proper way to do the incremental backups. The reason is there is no concept of transactions which generate redo logs or commit logs. So for many other reasons as well, it is not practical to take the regular backup. But whenever you are doing a major upgrade, you have to take the backup, because if the upgrade fails, and it can result into loss of data. To avoid that, to mitigate that issue as much as possible, you have to take the complete backup of your Hadoop cluster. So in this case, let's say there is a Hadoop cluster A, and you want to do a major upgrade. So the first thing you have to do is you have to create a Hadoop cluster B, create Hadoop cluster B, and then copy data or backup data to B, and then upgrade A. If A is successful, as you just copied the data, you can continue using A. If the upgrade is failed, then you have to move your traffic to B, or you have to rebuild the A using the data that is already backed up in B. So depending upon the situation and on your requirement, you can design your strategy, but at least you have to take the backup. That is the most important thing. How we will come back to the original state is a different story. It depends upon several factors which we need to decide at that time based upon the scenario. Okay, so when we talk about petabytes of data, taking the backup to B can be time consuming. It might take few days. For that, for all these purposes, DHCP can be used. You can actually copy baseline for a few days, and then you can even use DHCP to copy delta as well, as long as your files are saved in a where delta can be captured based upon directory names or file names. You can actually use the DHCP to copy the delta also. It can keep track of what all is already copied, and it can only copy the delta as well. It is a MapReduce based tool, and it uses lots of resources. So whenever you want to do the DHCP, you need to make sure that there is no much significant traffic on the cluster. So typically you could be doing it in off hours. Okay, main thing you need to remember is if you want to take a full backup of your Hadoop cluster at the type of major upgrades, you have to use the tool called DHCP, which stands for distributed copy. And the way you run the command is Hadoop DHCP, and then you have to give the source and target clusters, and there are several other parameters which can help you to capture the delta and all those things. Okay, you can explore it further. But if even in interviews, if they ask you the questions, how will you back up the HDFS, you have to answer using DHCP, and you have to tell them that it is not feasible to run these commands on daily basis. Only at the time of major upgrades, if you need backups, you can use a tool like DHCP, which is part of Hadoop command line interface, to copy from one cluster to another cluster. And then upgrading the software. Using the Cloudera Manager, you have to go through the readme.txt, and you have to understand how the cluster is built, whether it is packages or parcels. And then depending upon the readme, you have to upgrade the software. And one way is so if you click on this, it will show you. If it is parcels, it will show you here. If there is any upgrade, if there are any latest versions, it will show you here, and you can actually apply the parcels. Okay, and right now the cluster is built on 5.2.1, and it is saying that there is a latest version. So if you want to install this, you can stop all the services, download it. Actually, you can download even when it is up and running. The only thing is, once it is downloaded, you will see it over here, and then you can actually apply on the cluster. So you can use this interface for your upgrades, but make sure that you bring your server down or bring your cluster down whenever you are doing these kinds of upgrades, and you test it thoroughly before implementing it in production. And take the backup of the data, run the cluster in upgrade mode for some time, and finalize the upgrade. And the main thing is to go to the documentation for more details when you want to upgrade the software. You typically do not do upgrades very frequently, and mostly you will be applying the patches. And for applying the patches, you have to go through the documentation that is provided by the Cloudera for the particular patch. Adding or removing host in cluster. So first, to add the host, one or more hosts in the cluster, first you have to provision the host. You have to execute the prerequisites, as we have done for our baseline cluster. Then go to the tab, host tab, and you have to click on add new host to the cluster, and you have to install the software. Let's do the demo for that. Click on home, and if you go to host, okay, we have 16 nodes in the cluster, but the two nodes it's failed. 501 and 508, it's failed for some reason when we actually set up our cluster in the first place. Now we will see what the issue is with them. Okay, so if you want to add, let's delete these two things first from here. Okay, so now you can click on add new host to cluster. Click on continue, and here now we sync CDH 501. Now we sync CDH 508. So once you provision the host and once you set up the prerequisites, you can go here and you can enter all the hosts you want, and you can search for them. Hit continue, and which one I have used? I think, yeah, that is right, 5.2.1. Click on continue, and the root password is Hadoop 20. Hit on continue, and first it will install the software, then we have to configure the cluster. it will take a little while to install the software. So we can actually connect to it. cd var log Cloudera SCM agent. You can actually so it says name or service not known. Which name or service is not known? Connection refused. Okay. Failed to receive heartbeat from agent. Okay. Ping IP 10.0.0.15. So I'm able to ping the 0.1 and now I'm trying to telnet 7.1.8.0. -y install telnet. I'm able to telnet also. Ensure that ports 9000 and 9001 are free on the host being added. Okay, telnet localhost 9000. So let us look at the prerequisites. I think some of the prerequisites are missing on this. Let me look at that. No, we should not telnet 16. We should telnet 15 only, because agent should be able to ping the master. It is saying failed to receive heartbeat from agent. So Cloudera manager is not getting the heartbeat from the agent. Failed to connect. Yeah, this is the main problem. Okay. Hostname -f. That's what. Let me troubleshoot. I think this is the issue. Yeah, I think someone did not update it. So let me do that. 1, yes, 20, etc host. Similarly, even for 8. Okay, now let us try to restart or yeah, retry. Okay, when it might be typical to run into this issue. Whenever you run into it should move immediately. If it is not moving immediately, you can abort the installation. And what you have to do is you have to do LSLTR on temp. LSALTR, because the file is hidden, and to see the hidden files you have to do -A on temp, and you will see this one, SCM repair node lock. So what you have to do is you have to RM, means delete that file, exit, yes, ideally it should have been dealt by itself, but it could be a bug. Now we have deleted and we are retrying now. And now it has gone into copying files directly. Instead of, you could not even see that acquiring lock issue. So if you run into that acquiring lock issue, you have to delete this .lock file. It typically starts with SCM. SCM stands for, CM stands for Cloudera Manager, S for server. So server of Cloudera Manager. Or service probably, service of Cloudera Manager. So now again it is reinstalling. And now see whether what is going on with respect to cd var log agent lsldr tail -f. Now it seems to be working fine. Now the issue is resolved. Hit continue. So even when running the when you are installing, if you want to watch them on the command line, the best way is to identify the log file, appropriate log file, and run tail -f command. Then as the data is written to the log file, it will be displayed on the standard out. Okay, the following errors were found. Typically, if there are any issues in your cluster, after installation, after doing the host inspection, it will display errors over here. And the following errors were found while looking for conflicting unit scripts. And let's see what it is. This is fine because as we are adding these two hosts first time, probably it might be causing the issue. I think this issue you can ignore. It is giving for everything, so you can ignore it for now. And this one also you can ignore. The group scoop is missing on the following host. If you want to fix it, you just have to create a group called scoop2. Okay, and you can hit continue, and you can say none. If you create a template, it will try to use an existing template, but you can choose none, or you can actually create a template and add all the services which you want to configure on them. Okay, In this case, I am not using templates or creating a template, but this is the best way to do it. If you have many nodes to be applied, just create a template, give a name, and then you can actually configure whatever you want. Let's do that actually. So let's create a template called slave, and in this case, for slave, we want to use region server. HDFS, we want gateway and data node. Hive, we want gateway for the slave. Hive, nothing. Impala, we want to specify Impala daemon. Oozie, nothing. And Yarn, we want to specify gateway and resource manager. Okay. And we will create slave. And we will create another thing called gateway. Oh, thank you. I will do that. Gateway for HBase gateway, for HDFS gateway, for Hive gateway, for Impala nothing. Oozie, there is no gateway for Oozie. And scoop client, yeah, I have to select gateway for scoop, gateway for yarn, and zookeeper, there is no gateway. Okay, let me edit this one. Can I edit? No, I can't edit. That's bad. That is fine. There is no way to edit. That is weird. So we will just configure gateway for now on both. Hit continue. So hit on finish. Hit continue. Now we will see both the hosts as gateways. Okay. Now if you want to add roles, somewhere it should show you to apply template. Yeah. Here if you, let's say you want to make 8, you want to assign a different template, then you can click on template. Yeah, now I think you can edit. Edit. I don't want to edit the gateway one, I want to edit the slave one. Edit. And for yarn, I configured resource manager accidentally, as Chintan pointed out. I want to configure it as node manager. And scoop, I want to configure it as gateway. Okay. And then click OK. And now go back to hosts. Now I want to apply a different template for this. Okay. I think you have to go here. Yeah. Slave. Somewhere there should be place to apply template. Status. Let's do this. We run upgrade wizard. No, not this one. Somewhere there should be a place where I should be able to apply the template. They change the, yeah, host. That's what I have seen that. Is there a template? Yeah, correct. So I opened that, but I didn't see that last time. Probably I might have overseen that. Now I can choose the slave. And I want to start all the roles after applying them. Okay, now you can close. And to make sure that your new slave is on par with the others, you can first validate the number of roles on each of them. It is also 9 now, and also you have to check review the roles. These are not yet started. I told them to start. Yeah, it is still starting. So that's why they are shown in stopped state, but you should review the roles as well. So if you see HBS gateway, region server, data node, HDFS gateway, Hive gateway, Impala daemon, scoop, yarn, and yarn. So you can apply to multiple nodes in one shot. So even if you have, typically you will be adding group of nodes rather than adding one node at a time. You will be adding several nodes at a time, and then you can apply the respective template to apply the roles for a given set of nodes. Okay, so now 501 is just a gateway, and 508 we have created we have configured it as slaves. Okay, it is still starting. What it is starting? It is starting Impala. Now everything is started, it seems. Yeah. Now we can click on home, and if you see, there is it is saying stale configuration, and it says redeployment needed. So you can click on that. You should not see those circular arrows or doors with arrows. You should review it immediately and apply those things as soon as possible. This one we want to restart the cluster. You can restart the cluster. And it is doing the rolling restart. So you can click on it. So typically when you are adding bunch of nodes, you will do it in the red zone. So restarting the cluster will not have any issues. But if you try to decommission a node, at that time you should not restart the cluster, because decommissioning of the node can be unplanned also. For example, if a hard disk failed, and if you want to remove the node, you might have to do it in the green zone also. At that time, you have to be careful when clicking on the redeployment configuration. You need to see whether it is restarting the cluster. If it is restarting the cluster, then you should not decommission immediately. Okay, we will review it again once it is started. So we have done adding host to the cluster. If you have to remove the host from the cluster, go to host tab and click on a host where you want to, which you want to decommission. You have to stop all the services from on that host, not everywhere. And then you have to decommission the host from the cluster, and then you have to delete the host from the cluster. And then you have to uninstall Cloudera Manager agent and Cloudera Manager daemons. You can review the documentation for this one. You can use yum if it is Red Hat to uninstall, and then you have to clean up all the remnants. And again, if it is a master, you might have to deal in a different manner. When it comes to decommissioning a master, you have to be extremely careful. If it is slave, you can decommission at any point in time. And if you are decommissioning set of nodes at the same time, you have to be careful about the balancer. Even adding many nodes in the cluster, you have to be careful with the balancer, because it can saturate the network. Because data that is existing in the cluster has to be redistributed across multiple nodes in the cluster as part of the balancer. So you need to understand the side effects of running the balancer. When you, if you have a lot of data, then it can saturate the network, and it has to be redistributed the load after the new nodes that are added in the cluster. Similarly, when removing it, to reach to the desired replication factor, it will start creating copies of the existing blocks. Even at that time, when you remove the nodes from cluster, even at that time, if balancer runs, it will consume a lot of network resources. And it has to copy from the surviving nodes two different nodes to get the replication factor satisfied. It is still doing the rolling restart. Let it run. I will go to the next one. So adding the service and removing the service, through the course I am doing that. So it is pretty straightforward. Go to the Cloudera home page, click on that small rectangle beside the cluster, and you can add or delete a service at any point in time. But again, typically you will do it only in red zone. You will not be doing it in, on a live cluster. This is still running, so let me show you. So here you will you have to take care of adding a service or deleting a service. Adding a service, you will click on this to add a service. If you have to delete a service, first you have to analyze whether there are any dependencies on that service, and those services has to be and that the dependency has to be removed, or the dependent service has to be deleted. For example, if you have to delete Hive, you can delete Hive without any issues, because there is no service which will depend on Hive. But if you want to delete HDFS, all the services are dependent on HDFS. So first you have to stop the other services, delete them, then only you will be able to delete the HDFS. So for each service, you need to understand the dependencies, and then you have to act accordingly whether you want to add a service or delete a service. If it is at the root level, then adding is straightforward. You just add it, and there will be no dependencies to add it. It will be added without any issues. But if it is at the leaf level, to add it, you have to add all the dependent services on that until the root. For example, if you want to add Hive, the root is HDFS, and then it requires others also in between. So you have to complete all those things before adding Hive service. Similarly, if you want to delete, deleting the one which is at leaf level is pretty straightforward. You can just click on this, stop it, and then delete it. But if you want to delete the one which is the root or branch, you have to identify the dependency services. You have to stop them, delete them, and then only you can delete these more important services at branch level or at the root level. So you have to analyze the impact, and you have to take action accordingly. Now the service is started, and now the deployment configuration icons are all gone. And now if you click on HDFS, and now we have 9 data nodes, and one of them is 508. Okay, and you can click on data node web UI to make sure that it do not have any issues. If you want, you can run balancer. Now we have to go to the HDFS service and click on action to run the balancer. Where is it? Yeah, rebalance. If you run this, it will rebalance the data across all the nodes in the cluster. Okay, so whenever you add nodes to the cluster, immediately you should do this, but you should be aware that running the rebalance will consume a lot of network resources, and so you should. It is highly desired to run balancer only in the red zone. So that is about add or remove services. You just have to understand the dependencies and take the necessary action while adding or removing the service, and it is covered extensively through the course. Troubleshooting the issues. First, you have to understand the log files for each and every tool. So for each and every tool, there will be a directory under var log, and in that the file, the service or tool level logs will be there. Following the syntax that is defined in log4j.properties. So you need to be familiar with log4j.properties and the log files created for a particular tool. I will take a couple of examples and show how it works as part of the demo. So now we are on the new node. Let's go to the new node, which is 8, which is configured as slave. You can look at cd var log, and if you look at it, there are many directories related to our Hadoop ecosystem. HDFS, Hadoop HDFS is HDFS, Hadoop Yarn is for Yarn, HBase, ImpalaD. So these are the main 4 slaves which are running on this. Okay, and you can look at Hadoop HDFS. And if you think about it, for HDFS, we are running data node on this. This is a slave node, so we are running the data node. So this is the naming convention for the main log file that is related to the data node. So if you want to troubleshoot the issue with respect to starting or stopping the data node, this is the place where you need to go. Okay, and you can actually view a tail -f or whatever any Linux command. You can look into that file and you can determine what the issue is if there is any issue. And this naming convention and the way this file size is controlled is dependent on the log4j.properties. Again, the log4j.properties is considered as a parameter file. So to get the runtime log4j.properties, you have to go to var1 Cloudera SCM agent process, and we are talking about HDFS, which is data node. So you can actually grep -i data node. So there is a directory called this one. There is only one directory because we have ran it only once on this node today. So you can go to this directory, and then you can actually look at log4j.properties. And it will control the naming convention. So this is the naming convention of the log file, and there are plenty of parameters like max log file size. So once it reaches 200 MB, the log file will be recycled and a new log file will be created, so that it will not grow indefinitely. And this is the path which is being controlled. Again, log4j.properties have the log.dir parameter which will control the location also. So if you want to redirect the log to a different location, you have to update this file using the Cloudera manager. You should not directly update here. You should go to the Cloudera manager and you have to update in the Cloudera manager directly. And then it will start using a new directory on all the nodes in the cluster. So you need to be familiar with the changes, with the impact of the changes that needs to be done on this, depending upon the requirement. But keep in mind that all the logging is controlled by log4j.properties. It's a Java-based tool, but you need not be worrying about Java. As an administrator, you just need to understand that there is a file called log4j.properties, and depending upon the requirement, you have to analyze which parameter needs to be changed and what will be the side effect if you change the parameter. Then you are good to go. So similarly, if you go to HBase, again, there are log files in HBase, and the naming convention looks same. And now if you go to var1 Cloudera SCM agent and process lsltr grep -i HBase cde92 lsltr view log4j properties. So it looks almost same. Only thing is it is related to HBase. Okay, that is about log files. At tool level. So there are two types of logs. One is at the tool level, and the second one is at the job level. Job level, or yeah, typically you can say it at job level, but when it comes to HDFS, it need not be at job level, but at the file level there will be some logs that will be maintained internally. But tool level logs follow the same architecture for almost all the tools in Hadoop ecosystem. Okay, and when it comes to Hive, now we are talking about the log files for jobs and activity. So HDFS, parameters in HDFS tech.xml drive the location of logs at lower level, which means when you actually copy the data, there are certain parameters in HDFS tech.xml which will control the logs for the data that is being stored. And for YAML Classic, you have to understand the web interface and location of the logs. Okay, so this one is clear. You just have to go to the resource manager web interface if you are using YAML, and you can click on the job and you can go to the logs. And once the job is done, the logs will be stored in job history server, and typically you will use the web interface to look at the logs. Hive, and the logs will be under /tmp/os username /hive.log by default. You can go here and you can look into this file to see the details at Hive query level. And if you want to look at the logs at the execution time, then as Hive uses MapReduce, you have to go to the resource manager and check the logs from there. Pig at pig query, pig data flow or pig Latin script level, wherever you execute the script, log file will be created there, as I have shown today morning. So you have to be very careful from where you are running the pig, because if you use different directories to run the pig commands, pig logs will be scattered across all the entire file system, and it will be tough to clean it up. So you have to be very careful from where you are running the pig scripts. Scoop, there is no log files created. You have to redirect standard error to log files as shown in the last session. Okay. And changing the parameters at runtime. So when you are running the jobs, you might have to change the parameters at runtime. This is one more thing which you need to be aware on day-to-day basis. Because, for example, if you are processing a very big file, which is, you might want to increase the split size to reduce the number of mappers. So for that, as an administrator, you need to be aware of the -d, the significance of -d and -conf. -conf is to, if you want to override many parameters for some of the ad hoc jobs, then you have to put it in an XML file. You have to define all the properties that you want to override, and you can run your Hadoop jar command using -conf and giving that XML file. If you just want to override one parameter, you can use -D. Even while copying the files using Hadoop FS command, if you want to use a different block size than the default ones, there also you can use the -D parameter. And at the same time, if you want to override many parameters when doing Hadoop FS commands, then also you can use -conf. For Hive, as I have shown earlier, as part of the Hive demo, you can use set command in the Hive command line interface to override a parameter. Also, if you are running the Hive using Hive-E or Hive-S to execute a single Hive command or a Hive script, then you can override certain parameters with -hiveconf. And if you want to override multiple parameters at the same time for a given user, you can leverage .hiverc, and you should be able to override parameters for Hive. So for each of the tools, you need to understand how to override the parameters at runtime, and it will come handy in manipulating to make things more efficient or faster depending upon the requirement. Okay, updating the parameter files. As I have mentioned to you earlier, you should always use Cloudera Manager to update the parameter files. You should not directly update XML files or properties files for the tool. And I will show one or two tools. So if you want to own parameters that are related to HDFS, which is core site.xml or HDFS site.xml, you have to click on the service HDFS, go to configuration, and all the parameters in HDFS site and core site.xml are categorized and displayed here. And you can, depending upon the category, if you want to override, and if you are not sure about these things, you can just search for a parameter. So for example, if you want to change the block size, so this is the parameter for block size, and if you want to change the value here, you can directly change it from here, like 256. And from here, all the files that are copied to HDFS by default reverse 256. And in some cases, you might not be able to, let me think about which parameter. Port. Yeah, DSS. Okay, let me see name nodes, ports and addresses. For example, if you want to change your name node web UI port number, you can change it directly here without any issues. But sometimes, let me think about it. Yeah, as I have shown earlier, for Oozie, where we want to override a parameter to make it to true, and the parameter is not there in any of the in the configuration file at the time when we try to create the reconfigure our Oozie to MySQL. Okay, so there will be many scenarios where you will find out like that, and also as an organization, you might want to add a new parameter for HDFS. There might be scenarios where developers want to add a new parameter for HDFS, which is nothing to do with Cloudera or Hadoop, just for the organization purpose. For example, you have a parameter called organization name, and you want to use it in many MapReduce programs, and you want to make it accessible to all the programs as a configuration parameter for several reasons. So in that case, as there is no such parameter, you will not be able to update it directly, because by going to configuration and by clicking on there is no such parameter, it will not be shown here. So you might want to add to the existing XML files. You should not go to the command line prompt and you should not start adding the parameters over there. What you have to do is you have to determine which category it might fall into. For example, let's say it's a gateway default gateway related parameter. You can click on advanced, and all the advanced ones will have safety valves. So in each of the advanced ones, if you click on advanced here, so there are certain parameters which are called as safety valves. Okay. So if you want to add a parameter related to failover, then probably this might be the good place. Go here, click on this, and enter an XML tag property with subtags name and value, and that parameter will be available in HDFS site.xml. Why you have to use add a failover? So if it is related to failover, you should add it so that when you want to review that parameter later, it is categorized in the appropriate location. So in this case, if you want to add an organization name as a parameter, and you felt that it is a gateway, and you want to see only in gateway all the time, Then you have to click on gateway advanced under gateway default group, and you have to. So if you see, there are two safety value related parameters. Okay, and they are saying that if you update the safety value here, the change will go to Hadoop env.sh file, and if you update the safety value here, the change will go to HDFS site.xml file. So in this case, I want to add it as an XML parameter so that I can read at runtime as part of my MapReduce application. So I can create one here. It should start with property tag, and within that, you will have name, and you can say organization name, value, big data, and I want to make it final so that no one should update at runtime or override at runtime. Final, I have to set it to true. By default, it will be false. So unless you want to change it to true, there is no need to set it here. So you can give it like this, and you can click on Save Changes. Okay, and it should ask you to redeploy. Yeah, now it is showing that it needs to be redeployed. So when when you actually update the safety valve, I think it forces you to actually restart the cluster. So to add these kind of parameters as part of the safety valve, you have to get the red zone, and you only change the parameters that goes into safety valve at the in the red zone. Most of the parameters, it is the case with most of the parameters that goes to the core XML files. Okay, so restart now. It will take a little while to restart. Meanwhile, we will go to the next. Red zone means there should be no traffic to the cluster. Okay, so that is how you update the parameter files on the daily basis. So these are the few cases which I have covered as part of day-to-day activities that are taken care by Hadoop administrators. They do add or delete user spaces at a frequent interval. There are more details into that. You can actually control the size of the user space. And at the time of migrations, you have to take the backup of the cluster using DHCP. You might have to upgrade the software or apply the patches, for which reading the instructions provided by the vendor is the most important aspect. You can add or remove as many number of hosts to the cluster at a given point in time, given that you have taken the downtime to do so. You can add or remove services also. And I have shown you how to troubleshoot the issues, and then how to change the parameters at the runtimes, and how to update the parameter files in Hadoop. So for changing the parameters at runtime, you don't need any red zone or anything. So depending upon the use case, if you want to accelerate, you need to understand certain parameters. You have to work with the developers, and then you have to override certain parameters at runtime, and you have to execute it. Okay, that is it about day-to-day operations. Let me know if you have any questions.